Welcome to the Boardroom Sessions podcast. In these sessions, we meet the most amazing and interesting people. We learn about their passions, their business models, cool new technologies, and of course, their lessons on personal growth. I hope you enjoy. I am so pumped up to share this session with you. In this session, we get to meet Tony Everett of PureGame. Tony's the founder of a nonprofit called PureGame and is helping transform the lives of our youth with lessons around their value and their ability to achieve and create in their lives. Lessons I think should be taught to everyone, especially our youth. I'm so excited to share this, and I'm hoping that you all give it a good listen and share it with all of your friends, because these are some valuable things that Tony's bringing to the world here today, and so excited for him, and hope you enjoy. Tony Everett, welcome to the Boardroom Sessions podcast.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Hey, Tony, you and I had a phenomenal conversation, and it was brief. I think we talked for a total of maybe 7 to 10 minutes at an Orange County Technology Professionals group meeting the other night, and we hit it off right away. And I knew that the takeaway was that we needed to have this conversation so the greater public could hear it. You run a nonprofit called PureGame.
I do, yes.
So tell us about PureGame.
So we're 10 years old this year, and it started 10 years ago when I was actually coaching soccer at the time, and I'd been coaching for about 10 years in AYSO and club over here, and it's really competitive and really expensive. And I realized that it was far too expensive, too competitive for the majority of kids and families out there. And so I knew there was something different that needed to be done. And that was my starting point. I thought it was going to be a pure soccer-based organization that brought some of the fun back into the game. Because when I'm from England, I moved here in 2000, but growing up as a kid, I'd go down to the park and play and just kick the ball around and have some fun.
Yep.
But no one does that over here.
No, it's very competitive, and parents get the kids into coaching and after coaching, and it's amazing how the fun can get sucked out of it right away, right?
Very quickly. And so I thought that would be the kind of the driving force to it. But then I got into an organization called KidWorks in Santa Ana, completely by accident, actually. And I was up there, and they were doing a spring break camp, and their soccer coach was late. And so they said, has anyone got any soccer equipment? I said, I've got some stuff in the back of the car. And I went and set up my PureGame style fields and started playing with the kids. And everyone loved it. Everyone had a good time. I ended up doing a 3-day camp with them. And that was really the launching point for PureGame.
Okay. And so right now you work with schools.
Yes.
Right? And so as a nonprofit, how do you fund that?
So we've got a program. It's a fee-based program from schools. We actually fund it through their local control accountability plan, which is LCAP, or Title I funding from. And so schools actually have a budget to work with community partners to bring in character education or leadership style coaching, something that
and
actually
that's done at the actual school level. So the individual principals of each individual school has the ability to discretionarily use that fund.
Yeah, they each have a budget. It's not a big budget, but they actually have a budget to bring in someone like us who is positively influencing their kids and what they call their school climate. So do kids feel safer? Are they attending more? Are grades improving? Is playground bullying?
So those are the metrics that they use to judge your effectiveness or efficacy, as they say.
Yes.
And so how do you rank? How are you doing?
We're good so far. We're in 70 schools, so we're doing something right.
70 schools, and that's amazing.
Yes.
And so we'll dive into a little bit of what you're doing in those schools, but I'm curious as to some of this business model portion here. Do you have to go to each individual school of those 70s and sell each principal on the program?
We do, yes. Yes, it was intentional to start off with that way. We found out that when you get to district level, they don't have a finger on the pulse of what's really going on in the schools. as much as a principal does.
Okay.
A principal faces problems every day. How many kids have they got in the office? How many playground fights are they having? What's their attendance like? They know that stuff, and because they know that stuff, they understand the need for a program like PureGame.
Okay.
So yeah, we go to with the blessing of the school district, but we go to each principal individually.
Okay.
And what we found, so the principals love the program. They've got a budget. Not always can they afford the entire amount. Not that we're expensive, but we're only $4,000 for a full school year for 1 day a week. So it's not an expensive program, but some schools can't even afford that. And so that's when the non-profit side of things come in, and that's where we've got to raise money to actually subsidize the funds.
Right. I was going to say $4,000 can barely afford the equipment, one time, let alone and everyone's time and effort and insurance and all that kind of other stuff you must have to carry.
Yes, there's a lot of overhead on that side of things. But when you find support from donors and foundations and people getting involved, that's what then helps support the program. And so the cool thing is a donor will give something to a school, knowing that the school is also giving some money to the program as well. So, it's not totally funded by donors.
Right. And so that's a whole end of business of itself, right? Fundraising and driving all that kind of support from the nonprofit. So very, very curious to have some conversation there around some of those things that you're doing. But let's talk a little bit more about PureGame itself. So you go to these principals and what's your pitch? If I'm a principal and you're coming to my school, do I have to have some requirements? Do I have to be from the wrong side of the neighborhood, or would it work in a better neighborhood? Give me some of the dynamics there.
Yes, that's a great question. So we predominantly go for the wrong side of the neighborhood, just because actually kids appreciate our program more, and so do parents. I think it's not that the better side of the neighborhood doesn't need it any more than the worst part. Kids are kids and they get into trouble, right? And so they all need a certain amount of positive influence in their lives and some character education, some good solid value education. So it doesn't matter where you're from, but we predominantly head for the wrong side of town, as it were, simply because our program is appreciated that much more.
Right.
And so, kids enjoy it.
And your program's somewhat geared toward that, right? Like in the overall outcome you're seeking there, you think you're going to have a good measurement stick of before and after with these kids?
So it comes into it. We at PureGame really don't believe there's such a thing as bad kids. We do believe there are bad environments. And what we see with bad kids, right, if you want to call them that, is actually the behavior that's reflected on the bad environment. We're just seeing them playing out. Right.
They're a victim of they're a victim of their circumstances.
Yes.
They're a victim of their surroundings. Yeah. They're a victim of their environment.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's the environment that plays a big role in that. And so these families and these kids that we work with are great families and kids. They're just unlucky more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were born in it.
Yeah.
They have no choice in it.
Yeah,
right?
And they don't necessarily understand, what's out there. And I like to say kids can't aspire to what they don't know exists. Well, if you're from a poor part of town, then you don't necessarily know that there's a job called an analysis or something like that. Whatever it is, right? You don't know there's these jobs out there. And so you just get stuck in a rut in what you're used to.
So walk with me through the pitch from the principal. So I'm a principal in an inner city school, and I've got this, challenging environment that would fit the criteria that we're talking about. So you're going to come to me and say, hey, I know you have this discretionary income or this discretionary budget.
Yeah.
I want some of it.
Yeah. Basically, it's finding out their problem points, and nearly every problem point is the same no matter what principal you go to. It's, are the kids being respectful or responsible? Do they have some core values? Do they have issues with tardiness? Do they have absentee issues? And do they have playground issues? And there isn't a school on this planet who doesn't have playground issues.
So those are all T questions that you can just tee them up and know that they're going to go, oh, yes, how did you know?
Yeah.
And then you have empirical evidence from past experience with these 70 other schools of how you solve for that?
Yeah.
How you help that environment?
Absolutely. And what it's really about is the fact that when you give kids a positive mentor, when you give kids an positive, enriching environment, they act and behave to be that positive person. There is evidence all over the place and research done on this. When you treat kids like they're failures, then they will perform to be a failure. When you teach kids like they are A students, then they will perform to be A students. There are research out there that demonstrates that.
That's important.
Yeah,
it's important for us to think of as parents, right?
Yes.
As community members to know that, right?
Yeah. When you tell a kid he can't, then the chances are
he can't.
He can't.
Yeah. Well, there's an old saying: you can or you can't. Both are true.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so by creating, the big thing about PureGame, we're a positive youth development program. We do it through sport. We don't focus on the traditional sport. So there's no coaching, teaching, skills, drills, teams, leagues. There's none of that traditional, club or AYSO stuff. It's quite literally putting a field of play out there on the hard top or on the field. And then we get kids playing. And then we focus on the power of positivity and encouragement. And by building and developing those positive relationships, we show kids that they can. And so when they go back into the classroom, they're that much more engaged because they're positive.
And so you gave me an example when we were talking. You said that you have a walking soccer game, right? And so that made perfect sense to me because now you're taking the athleticism out, right? Mm-hmm. So some kid who's used to being the fast kid and good athlete, right? He now has to play on the same level as somebody who might be, running challenged, let's say.
Yeah, running challenged.
So you're helping those individuals build esteem because it's an equal playing field.
Yes.
So elaborate on that.
Well, and yes, so we like to equal the field. So it's about, when I said there's no teams and leagues, what we actually do is we'll change the teams around as we play. So every 5 minutes you're playing with and against someone else. So it takes away that stacked team syndrome. But then when we look at walking soccer, we're trying to create an experiential learning moment for the kids. So walking soccer is specifically used to teach kids self-control. Because when a ball rolls by you, your immediate reaction is to want to run after it, especially if you're a 10-year-old.
Okay.
But they have to control themselves and walk. Okay. And so it's in that walking now that we can then say that feeling you just had, where you controlled yourself from running, that's called self-control. What does that look like in the classroom and in your home? And so there's that experiential learning moment built into the lessons and the games that we play.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, but then you are right. The faster kids who love playing soccer, when they're actually having to walk now, is on a level playing field with every other kid out there because we can only all walk.
Yeah. And now they get to learn that lesson of the reaction of wanting to run, right?
Yeah.
I found early in life, and I've been coached professionally early in my professional career, that I have a tendency to jump before looking and before knowing whether that's an area of strength or weakness. I will just take action and jump, and sometimes I'll jump right off a cliff, and that's just not good.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me a lifetime to learn when to know that. So that would have been a valuable lesson on the soccer field as a kid. So let's continue on the conversation around that. So I'm sure if I were a principal, I would say, this sounds great. What are your results?
Yes. And so the results that we found from our principals or for our principals is we typically reduce their principal referral rate. So they are seeing less kids. Especially during the morning recess and lunchtime recess times. Kids are engaging in their classroom more. And there are many factors at play here. I wouldn't say PureGame is the only definitive factor for these outcomes. But we do know that kids' grades are improving that we work with. We had one young kid whose math grade was an F. We talked to him and he was in our program for a while and he took his F from there to a C. Now, we didn't have like direct impact on that kid, but we had a part to play in his turning that grade around. So we can't pin everything on that kind of story, but we know that we're playing a part in it. Mm-hmm. We know that on Thursdays, when we're at a particular school in Santa Ana, attendance is always higher because
if
kids want to come and play soccer.
Yeah,
yeah.
They want to come and play.
Yeah.
So at the very least, you're creating some drive to get kids interested in school, right?
And then you've got the fact that kids are physically active for 20 to 30 minutes. And again, we don't need to do the research on kids being active for 20, 30 minutes. There's research everywhere that says, 20 minutes of physical activity a day is very important for the body. So we just piggyback on the research that's already out there about the importance of being physically active.
Oh, that's amazing. So some of the mechanics here, you have 70 schools you're working with right now?
We have, yes.
Okay.
70 schools across Orange County.
And what would be the goal? What are you trying to grow to?
This next year, we're looking to be in triple digits. So we want to be in 100 to 120 schools in the 2019-20 school year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aggressive goal. And you have a board of directors that sit on the...
We do. We have 10 right now. We're looking to grow that actually to 13 or 14 this next year as well.
And what do you look for in the board of directors of a nonprofit?
So we actually look for, and I think every nonprofit will be different on this for what their needs, but we're specifically looking for people who are connected, well connected, who have a heart and a passion for the mission of PureGame, which is to serve kids and to create this positive youth development program. And then specific arenas of expertise. It could be marketing, could be an expertise that we're particularly looking for, human resources, and attorneys.
Okay. Attorneys, because everything's litigious in this society, right?
We do need an attorney on the
It's no
on the
different
board.
in the UK, I bet, but I bet it's a little worse over here.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's amazing, and I think you're barking up the right tree. You and I met at the OCTP. What a great place to network, right?
Yes.
There's our next meeting at the OCTP is all around philanthropy and charity and corporate giving.
Yes.
And so you're in the right place, I think, and a lot of folks meet those criteria. I don't know how many attorneys we have in the room, but we have a whole lot of self-promoting marketing individuals that might be able to help you here. And so looking forward to that. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this problem that exists with the kids, right? Let's call it a problem. So you're seeing that kids have an underlying feeling of not feeling good enough, right? Like they don't have the ability to do something, right? Yeah. And so you and I in our conversation, which struck me so heavy and so hard, we had this conversation around the environment. And I posed a question to you, and you chuckled and were in wholehearted agreement with me. I said, do you think it has anything to do with their environment in the fact that the society, the media, the parents all have carried a lesson and a message to the children that they're disadvantaged and that there's a system stacked against them, and that by whatever circumstances around them that someone has and they have not, and therefore they never can.
Yes, 100% agree with that.
You totally agree with that?
Yeah. There is this belief within our kids that they just don't feel good enough. And a lot of it is their surroundings. And you can understand it when you walk out of your door and you're surrounded by, graffiti and gangs and criminal activity. You're not going to feel good enough either. But then when you add the media to that and the stories that they're hearing, then that just affirms what they feel to be true about themselves, which is sad. It's a sad state of play. But I mean, when you get into these kids and you talk to them and you let them know that they can become whatever they put their mind to, it just takes work. The unfortunate thing about a lot of the kids we work with is the lack of resources that then have to support that growth and that kind of development out of that situation.
Sure.
There is that bit to it. But yeah, it starts with the mindset. And if the mindset's wrong, nothing else is going to be
The
right.
resources to get out of the environment. I've heard the analogy, the crabs in the boiling pot, right? Analogy.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the crabs in a boiling pot, the crabs will crawl to the edge, and just about the time that they're
Yep.
getting it out, the other crabs pull them back into the
Yep.
pot, right?
Absolutely.
And so none of the crabs ever get out of the pot, by
Yes.
the way. That's the scenario. And so that's the environment. If they don't want to succeed, they don't understand it, and they will try and keep you down, right?
Yep.
As soon as somebody starts feeling good for themselves, somebody's going to come by and tell them that you can't.
Yeah.
You're just not capable. The man has it in them, right? There's the elite wealthy in this country that will only be wealthy, and everyone else has to suffer. And the one percenters,
Yes.
right? All of that kind of dialogue.
Yes. Which is detrimental to so many kids' lives, because if they hear that, then they already kind of succumb to that belief. It's almost tribal to a degree that, well, my tribe doesn't reach the levels of success that your tribe does, and yeah,
terms like blue collar, right? Terms like all of those things that just keep them in a state of understanding their place, right? I'm so glad somebody's seeing that for what it is and doing something about it.
Yes,
I'm incredibly encouraged by that.
Thank you.
So the work hard so they can stand out.
Yeah. So what we found is, and this is actually kids across the board. Doesn't matter where you come from here, actually, and it's definitely a mindset specifically within teenagers, because they don't want to stand out. Right? I am going to work hard to fit in, because if I stand out, someone might ridicule me or laugh at me. But if you're in a place, if you're in a gang, for instance, the idea of standing out in that gang might really get me into trouble. So I'm going to work really hard to fit in. And the working hard to fit in then leads to this failure in them being a standout anything, a standout athlete, a standout student, a standout individual, a standout person. And it's teaching kids that they can stand out. They can really go for it and be as good as they possibly can be. Right. But that message has got to be told to them.
Of course. And it has to be told to us adults too. There's lots of books out there, and there's a whole theories in business in particular and personal development around embracing failure, right? The whole Edison concept of Thomas Edison embraced failure. Yeah. He did it thousands of times until he figured out the right option, and he never thought of himself as a failure for thinking that way, right? Yeah. Some of the biggest titans of industry have thought that way. Yeah. They thought failure is expected and it's going to happen, and it's how I, react and overcome that failure. I'm going to deal with it, right? Yeah. So that's interesting, because our society wants everyone to fit in. Yes. Right. Especially in a social media world. Yes. Everybody needs to fit in these parameters, right? And if you aren't one of those that have these beautiful highlight reel social media scenario, and kids are very attuned to that media that they're getting right now. That's where they're getting most of their information, other than their parents, and they're discounting a lot of that sometimes, and they're going right to their peer group, and their peer group is feeding this information of fit in, wear this clothes, do these things, listen to this music, and so working hard to fit in so they fail to stand out. Right?
And the failure thing is a big thing, and it's, again, adults and kids alike. I like to say we live in an est society, right? You've got to be the fastest, the quickest, the smartest, the best at anything. And if you're not that, then where do you belong? And so they're so afraid of failing that they won't ever, step out and try something new. Well, if you're a kid from Santa Ana, not trying something new can be a real problem, because you just get sucked right back into that lifestyle.
Well, I'm never going to be the best.
Right.
So why even try?
Why
even try?
Yep.
That's incredible. So let's go right to it. My favorite part of this whole conversation is going to be around your motto. It's right on your shirt. It's right on your motto there. It's life played at full potential. All right. I am huge. That just resonates with me. I'm huge into incremental growth. I'm huge into a purposeful life, right? And having a life worth living, right? Arete, the Aristotle's term, is near and dear to me, and a battle cry for me, which means that purposeful life, well lived. Tell us about that. Tell us about that battle cry of life played at full potential.
Yeah. Well, it actually comes from a personal story and a struggle of mine, because I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that never felt good enough. I just kind of limped my way through life. And so because of that, I didn't engage properly. I did just enough to get by. And so and I know that I could have been, I'm an okay soccer player, I can play, but I know I could have been a whole lot better if I would have invested in myself back then, and if I'd have had someone positive around me back then to kind of help put me on that pathway. And I came out of school and joined the Royal Navy, and then left the Navy and got into sales. And I was a good salesman, but I could have been a great salesman if I'd have had someone positive around me to show me that I could believe in myself. And it's only recently that I've really kind of got over that hurdle to see that I am worthy enough to have a company now that serves thousands of kids a year. And so the whole life played at full potential is one of mine that I really do have a passion for teaching kids. You have a potential. Go find it. Go live it. Go be it. Whatever it is. If you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor you can be. If you're going to deliver milk, then be the best milk deliverer that you can be. Whatever it is, whatever you choose, be the best at it.
That's awesome. So I don't even know where to start in that whole conversation here.
Yeah.
I'm going to just grab on one thing. You said it just now starting to find out that you are worthy, right? So where did that come from? What led you to that? What led you to the finding that?
So I am also a big proponent to this whole idea of growth and development. And so secretly I've been quietly churning away at, reading books, listening to podcasts, and growing myself to understand more about business, but holding on to the back of my mind that I'm not worthy still. And so it stopped me really growing PureGame and really believing PureGame could be anything other than this small little service company. And what really switched, what flipped the switch for me was I was actually at a retreat class just last year, end of last year. It's an organization puts it on called Driven Leadership, and it was Advantage Communication. And part of that, I wrote in big bold letters somewhere that I deserve success. And there was something in that moment, something in that action of writing it out and going through this process that really clicked it into me that, hey, I've built an organization. We hire 12 staff. We serve about 7,000 kids a year. We're in 70 schools. I did that. So of course I'm worthy, and of course I'm living my best life. And so let's grow even bigger into that. So I think we debilitate ourselves with our self-talk, with our beliefs of ourselves, right?
Our self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my self-limiting belief was always, what do you know about running a business? What do you know about doing this? Well, now I know quite a bit about it because I've done this for 10 years now.
Right.
And not only that, I've read a lot of books and I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've been to a lot of seminars, and I've talked to a lot of really, really good people.
And isn't it amazing in today's world, you mentioned all of my media that I go to right now, that it's all available at your fingertips right now? It's never been a time in the world as there been more information readily available, and your ability to choose the information you want to ingest, right?
Yes.
I used to listen to the radio. I now choose to get my information from where I want to source it from.
Yeah.
Positive podcasts, positive books, YouTube vignettes, right, of quotes of famous people and them talking, and now they put it to music and they make it very dramatic, and they get me psyched in the morning and ready to control the day. And I hear these same concepts of don't buy into the self-limiting beliefs, and there are ways in which to do it, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I think you touched on and what you teach these kids, which I think is so fascinating, is incremental growth, right?
Yes.
Little bits.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the best.
Yep.
But if I'm working to my full potential, which is back to that Arete statement, growth, the journey to my highest potential, right? A game played at full potential, life played at full potential. You're on that incremental train, right? And so how is that received with the kids when you teach them?
They absolutely love it. They love it because they don't have many people in their lives telling them this sort of stuff. So to go out there and use a medium of sport, which is fun, and we can just run around and laugh and have fun with that. But then to be able to kind of highlight what we see in the kids as positive value traits. If we see someone being very respectful, then we will go above and beyond to make sure that they know we saw that. We're just launching this I am becoming idea. And the I am becoming idea is kids can actually decide who they want to be. Not what they want to do, but who they want to be. So they can actually say, I am becoming a reader, for instance.
Awesome. This is affirmation statements. You're teaching kids right away
absolutely
how to run an affirmation statement in their life.
And because they're saying, I am becoming a reader, that means they are growing into it. So there is forward motion. Yep. They may not have any evidence of them being a reader at this moment in time. And if they haven't got any evidence, they will typically steer away from it because of fear. They don't want to get involved in something they're afraid of. But if they're becoming a reader, they can step into it slowly. They can get their toes wet and read a page a week. Who cares how much they're reading? It's just they are becoming. And then over the course of time, as they track their progress, now suddenly they can look back and say, hey, look at that. I am a reader.
Make progress. They can celebrate that progress. They can celebrate that step in the right direction today.
All about celebrations. I received four photos today from my field champions. We call them field champions. They're my staff. Field champions, because they're on the field championing the life of kids.
Awesome.
And so that's the idea. And I received 3 photos of them today, handing out what we call our encouragement ball. And an encouragement ball is a soccer ball with tons of encouraging words on it. We actually get them specially made. And we use them as awards to give to children when they are demonstrating the values that we are teaching. So if we're teaching respect and responsibility and compassion and cooperation, which are all self-control, which are all words that we talk about in this game of soccer, and the kids who are demonstrating this, they don't know they're getting it, but at the end of a program, we'll give them an encouragement ball, and these kids treat them like trophies. They take them home and put them on their mantle and never kick the ball at all. It's awesome.
Oh, man.
It's wonderful.
I can't imagine how important that would be. These are life lessons that need to be taught, that my friends and I have found these like you through this self-realization journey or this awakening or whatever you want to call it, are finding this and thinking, why weren't we taught this as kids? You are systematically putting a system in place, starting with those who need it the most and building this. Good on you, Tony. Good on you. This is amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
It's awesome. Let's transition here a little bit for a moment and talk about how do you raise funds for a nonprofit, right? This is probably the least favorite part of your job, I would imagine.
It is.
And you have to risk in it, and you have to worry about how to go about it and compete in it and do all that kind of fun stuff. But tell the listeners here what it takes to get funding for a nonprofit.
That is a great question. It's one that we've wrestled with for a long time. And the world of non-profit fundraising is changing a lot, because there once was a time where you put a teary-eyed kid on the TV and people would just put hands in their pockets and donate. Well, that's gone now. The days of that have gone, and there are more non-profits asking for money, and so the competition is growing, and people are giving less to these sob stories, these tugging on the heartstrings. And so it's now a matter of engaging people into the story of your organization. So we try and engage people in our story, and by engaging them, they know that they are making an impact. First off, from the comfort of their own home, they can sit there and think back to their childhood and think of the best piece of advice they would give their childhood self. And if that's fear is a liar, then that's the advice they would give their childhood self. They share that with us. We then go give that to a kid in a program.
You asked me that question when we first met, right?
Yeah,
and so that was what kept me there. I'm in the middle of a mixer, and I'm having to go around and shake hands with everybody. I was hosting, so I had to make it a point to go talk to folks. You told me about your nonprofit, and then all of a sudden you shifted it and say, what would you tell your youthful self?
Yeah.
Right? Was that the question?
That's it. Yeah. What would you tell your childhood self? What's the one piece of advice you would give yourself? And it's a thought-provoking question. Many people have to think hard about what they would say to their childhood self, which means because it's a thoughtful process, it's not just a throwaway something. It means something. So then when I actually go give that to the kids in the program, it means something, and they actually take it on board. I got the piece of advice of fear is just a liar. I have given that to numerous kids in the program, and they sit down and they think about what does it mean in their life and how does it affect them, knowing that if I knew that fear was a liar, would I make different decisions and choices? And these kids take that advice on board and then will do something different because of it.
Yeah. Fear is like praying for something you don't want to have happen to have it happen. And that's just what fear is, right?
Yeah.
I've heard the acronym false evidence appearing real, right?
Yeah.
And so fear is just a thought. It's there's nothing there. There's no energy around it other than what you put it.
Yeah.
Right.
I gave that advice to my 8-year-old daughter. Shared it with her. I said, what would you say if someone gave you this piece of advice? And she thought about it quite hard, and we had just taken a zip lining and she didn't want to go. And she likened it to zip lining, that she didn't need to be afraid of anything because it was fun at the end of the day. And she turned it around and said, Dad, fear is just a reason to try harder. And that came from an 8-year-old. So
wow.
I am now using that piece of advice wholeheartedly. Fear is just a reason to try harder. Yeah, just harder. Keep going.
Oh, I like it. So back to, it's hard to, there's a lot there, a lot of people competing for this dollars. So carry on.
So if the feeling is that if you can engage them in the story, then you can ask them for impact. And if people feel that there is an impact with what they are contributing, just with advice or just with encouragement or whatever it is they're doing, then I believe, and I might be way off track here, but I believe then they're much more likely to say, I'll donate $10 for that, or $100, or there's a campaign to get a school a PureGame program. Because like I said, not all schools can afford it. So some schools can only afford $2,000. So now we've got to go and fundraise and put a campaign on where we can actually raise the extra $2,000 for X school in wherever part of Orange County.
Right.
And so if someone knows and understands the impact they are making through words of wisdom or encouragement, then they're much more likely to say, I know that this nonprofit is doing what it says it should be doing and is creating the outcomes. I know that nonprofit is changing lives. I'm actually now willing to put my money there and say, yes, I'll back you and support you.
Well, one of the biggest billionaire problems is where do they put their foundational money, right? Yep. So I've seen documentaries or snippets on TV of, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and how they're trying to make the right decisions, and how many, I think it was Warren Buffett's son, who's the heir to the Buffett, empire, and how he's using his money, and they all talk about their failures, right? How they tried to help Haiti, for example, and there's just this systemic, and there's documentaries out on the whole the hoaxes on charities and things of that nature, and so it's a challenge, and so they want to know what's effective and what's going to help. And this message of yours, I don't think there's anyone who would hear this message and wouldn't believe it to be helpful, right? The evidence to me is in the fact that there's billions of dollars in an industry right now for adults that read and listen to podcasts and listen to books on audio and read books and go to Tony Robbins seminars and are all on this search and journey to conquer fear and to
Yeah.
come through the same things you're teaching these kids right now.
Yeah.
And if you can get to them at an early age
Yeah.
and train this to them,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense to me, and why
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about
Yeah.
having this conversation.
And it's quite funny, actually. One of the reasons why I pick up some of these books or listen to a podcast, not one of the reasons, it's one of the things that I get out of it, I guess, is how do I take that message, convert it so a 12-year-old can understand it, whatever that might be, whether it's a Tony Robinson, piece of advice. How do I turn that now that's aimed at me as an adult, turn that to simplify it so I can actually put it to a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old so they understand it?
Well, it sounds like you're already doing it, because you're doing it well with I Am Becoming.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
the
a
idea.
perfect example to me of how to do the morning routine, right? So we all have a morning routine. All of my friends that are on this journey, you take that into consideration. Like Tim Ferriss wrote a book, Tribe of Mentors, right?
Yeah.
And so in that book, everybody he's ever interviewed, that's the A list of the most successful people in the world. They all have a very regimented morning routine that involves things like gratitude lists and affirmations and I am becoming, and they challenge themselves with personal mission statements and all of these things. You're giving this tool to kids who've never been exposed to it.
And there's no program that is teaching these kids this stuff, in schools, because schools are busy teaching math, English, history, all of the other stuff that needs to be taught. But what about these soft skills, these what they would call social emotional skills? What about those skills that we all know are crucial to a successful life, like a morning routine? If you went into most schools and say to kids, do you know anything about morning routines? I bet most would say no. And here the kids in the PureGame program are getting to hear it. What's your morning routine? And they'll come out and spill it out.
Yeah.
They'll just come in and say what it is.
I think a lot of people could benefit from this.
Yeah.
The kids in particular. Let's start there. Let's start with the kids. They're early and moldable, right?
Yeah.
And let's start there. How great. So back to the problem of the nonprofit, right? So there's money out there. There's competition for that money. How are you going about getting it?
I think it's about telling a good story, really kind of engaging engaging people in the story will have them feel like they're the hero in the story. There's a story brand book out there that talks a lot about this.
Yep.
And I think that's an important approach.
Yep. My friend Ben Zoldan runs a business called Storytellers, and he teaches sales individuals how to tell stories.
Yeah.
I just had lunch before our meeting today with a fellow CTPer who's looking for a role, and I was telling him how he can transform his resume into stories, right? Story about this situation, story about that role. I'm a firm believer in storytelling.
It's so important that, and again, going back to the kids, we practice what we preach. So we're trying to tell the kids stories this end, but then tell the story of these kids at the other end to then engage donors, and then engage people in the story so they feel they are part of it, not just a spectator on the outside looking in, which is another part of it. I think really pull them in. But the other part of it as well is corporate social responsibility. Corporations are, moving into a world that they know that they have a responsibility to give back.
Sure.
And so you said, let's start with the kids, but adults probably need it. So let's do a business model, as PureGame is doing. Let's start a corporate team builder, and we'll teach corporations the exact same lessons we're teaching kids.
Oh, that's genius.
But for adults.
Right.
They still need to hear the same message.
This message is being clamored for.
Yeah.
People are gravitating towards this.
Yeah, and we still play walking soccer with adults, by the way.
And you teach them the same lessons.
Teach them exactly the same lessons. They get so frustrated. It is really funny watching adults play walking soccer. They're worse at it than kids, by the way.
I bet.
Yeah.
Kids learn faster, right?
They do.
They learn faster because they have less rust to kick off, right? Less habits to kick off,
But
right?
you can play. So we play other games like blindfold soccer. Right, blindfold soccer, it's not quite as bad as what it sounds. No one's running around blindfolded. You actually walk, that's part of the rule. You have a team leader, and the team leader has to direct his team of 3 or 4 on passing the ball to each other, and then to finally get it into a goal. So you teach people about goal setting, where the goal is, how to accomplish goal, how to work as a team, how to communicate, and watching that is quite funny as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. So there's a whole new business model right there. That'll move you out of a nonprofit and into a very successful corporation here pretty soon.
Yeah. That's the hope.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I think people will benefit from this. This is all...
and the money goes to supporting schools. That's how we do it. So if we know that there's a school that needs subsidized funds, we'll find a corporation. Hey, corporation, would you bring in $2,000 for this school, and then, by the way, we'll run a corporate team builder for you if you want to.
Oh, that's fantastic. I like this.
So everyone wins.
So you're not just standing there going to a company saying with your hand out, cut me a check for this very good cause.
Yeah.
You're saying, I'll bring something to the table here. I'll bring this to the adults.
Yes.
I'll better your organization.
Yeah.
I'll help fire up the team that you have here that's clamoring for this kind of information. They might not even know it, but they're going to leave here super excited in team building environment, and we're not going to charge you for it. We're just going to ask you to put money in our thing.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and you've said it there. I think the world of nonprofits has got to move, if it's not moving already, away from this kind of hands out asking for more money. We've got to engage more rather than just say, please sir, can I have some more?
Yeah,
it's a broken system,
and it's also experiential when you're doing it the way you're describing it, right? People pay big dollars for corporate team building events, right? To go hang on the ropes down at UC Irvine and walk across the things. You know, we've all done that kind of stuff. So that's fantastic. Talk to me about your field champions. Is that what you call them? Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you recruit field champions to go be of service? Because the first thing I'm thinking to myself is how do I carve out time? How do I have my son who might benefit from being a field champion, right? He's going to learn the lessons that he has to teach. There's no better way to learn a lesson than to learn a lesson and then teach it to others.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about finding your field champions?
We have got an amazing team, dedicated guys and girls. Some of them have come from the program itself, so they've come through the program and are now serving kids. So we were at
graduates.
Yeah. They started with us 10 years ago, and now they're working and getting paid to do what they went through.
So that right there is proof that this works.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
So now they have enough free time, right? So that means that I'm assuming they have a job that affords them the free time to go and then give back. Then they have the want to go and be of service. So they found value as a kid going through it. Yeah. So how within the 10 years you've done that?
Yeah. And then several of our people have come from interns. So we have I think four or five of our field champions now interned with us because while they were at college, it was a requirement
to get an internship
to get an internship somewhere. And so they came out as an intern, and we put them to work on the field. And then they graduated out of college and then said, "Can we have a job? Can we come work for you? Can we stay here?" So we was like, "Great, you're part of the team and part of the family. Come on board." So they've come full circle themselves. We've got a UCI graduate who came through the program, wanted to give back, and he wanted to do something, so he came out and volunteered. And through the volunteers said, "Hey, can I do this full time?" And we pulled him on as a full time. He's now our operations director, which is great. That's the type of thing that we get them from. But hiring people, it's more about bringing people on again who just have a passion for kids and a passion for life development. I want to grow. I see the importance in my growth. And so I now want to pass that on to kids so they understand the importance of life growth. This continual learner concept and idea that is thrown away cheaply is so important, so important. No one should ever stop learning, ever.
No, it's the journey.
Yeah.
It's the journey of the growth to your highest potential.
Yes.
Right? That's the definition of arete.
Yeah.
And so then there's this concept Aristotle wrote, eudaimonia, which is true, unbelievable happiness. And that only happens when you are on that journey. Right? When you're giving everything you've got to a life played at full potential, right?
For sure.
And so that's amazing. And then the concept then becomes, once you are on that journey, you'll want to give. but we want to be of service.
Yes.
And there's this, I think it's a natural human trait to want to give back, right?
Yes.
That's the parenting, that's what people want in their life, and that's why people have pets, and this coexistence and giving that they have. And so then you have the opportunity to not only live this purposeful life, but to give it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, there's research studies on that say that when you actually give back of yourself, when you serve, you become happier and therefore more successful. You know, it's a natural.
Funny how it works that way, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So I'm going to leave some information, some contact information for you, Tony Everett, on the bottom of the show notes here on the podcast, so everyone can get a chance to reach out and see you. But where would they find you? I found you at the OCTP.
Yes.
Where else do you frequent?
As many networking events as I can get to. It's hard with a small family. But you could probably find me on any soccer field in Orange County.
Yeah, year round.
Year round. But the best place to find me online, thepurgame.org.
Thepurgame.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'm super psyched about this, and I know that I will be making some introductions anywhere and everywhere I can.
Thank you.
We have an event coming up, we talked about where you're going to be speaking about corporate governance and how to help people steward the giving in the corporate America. And so excited about this concept of you bringing these tools, these life lessons to the youth.
Yes, thank
because
you.
the youth need it. I think everyone needs it, but the youth need it in particular. Let's start there.
Yeah.
And I've had many a conversation with my friends around this very concept of these are the things that aren't being taught that should be taught.
Yes.
And you're teaching them.
Thank you.
So good on you.
Thank you very much.
Good on you, Tony. Thanks for the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, Mike here. Hope you liked this boardroom session. Please check back to our future sessions as we're recording a new one every month. If you want to reach out, look for me on LinkedIn or send me a note at mike@sidepath.com. That's Mike at sidepath.com.